Compulsion Games is a dying DEI-infected studio surrounded by complete chaos because they've signed on with Sweet Baby Inc. to work on South of Midnight, their upcoming game that supposedly comes out in 2025, and this is coming from the same Compulsion Games that many people have heard of before from their game We Happy Few. Now that that game came out, less than 10% of the staff remains there. New people have brought on, and many of them being DEI hires, then it's not really a meritocracy there, and it's complete chaos. What's going on, guys? Welcome to another episode of Smash JT, and holy crap, do we have a deep dive to jump into with Compulsion Games today, because this studio is not long for the game industry. Hit that subscribe, give me a like, and check out smashjt.com for the full article breaking down how Compulsion Games signed on with Sweet Baby Inc. to make this game called South of Midnight, and how one of their community managers is a little bit unhinged coming after the community, and it's not a great look for anybody. Compulsion Games, once celebrated for their ambitious title We Happy Few, has now instead become a reminder of what happens when politics, misguided corporate intervention, and disastrous management converge onto itself. Their upcoming project, South of Midnight, is already being touted as a near guaranteed flop. Instead of addressing the obvious issues, they choose to lash out and block critics to embolden their already ridiculous echo chamber that they've created. The downfall of Compulsion Games and their title coming out called South of Midnight can be traced directly to Sweet Baby Inc. once again, because as soon as they signed on with them, things started going south. Former developers have come forward with shocking information about the project, and huge shout out to Grums on X for all these insights, because this is something that he brought up a few months ago, and I kind of wanted to wait on talking about it until the game became more prominent. And here we are, they're on Twitter sharing video clips of the game coming out, and it is seemingly like an impending release. And honestly, I saw this video that they shared and I was like, it looks like a platformer that copies Crash Bandicoot. I don't know. This isn't really that special. But you know what? Pairing it with what Grums was saying previously on Twitter and what this recent video is, I guess I'll chat about it. So I clicked on Compulsion Games and I was like, oh, I'm blocked. That's really weird. I don't really remember even interacting with them at all. I mean, sure, they had Alyssa Mercante and Khalif Adams, and I think Paris was there too in a picture, and they tagged themselves on Twitter and shared it, and I'm like, okay, so these people who I personally feel like are not a good thing for the game industry are now hanging out at Compulsion Games headquarters, and these people don't like me, and they've been very forthcoming about that, so clearly they all converse with each other at Compulsion Games, and it's all one big group, and we're not a part of it. Whatever, I get it, that's fine. But you know what? Causing this kind of division with the community isn't a way to sell games. The once promising fantasy story inspired by the creative director's upbringing in the Deep South has been transformed into a disjointed mess due to misguided external influences. Sweet Baby Inc.'s focus on diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives have now taken precedence over the actual game development, leaving the project in a very poor state. Grums on Twitter said, more ex-developers come forth about Sweet Baby Inc. project South of Midnight by Compulsion Games, stating the community manager is still protected after saying she hates gamers and has a problem with Asian and white people. The main character was race swapped in order to better reflect a tale set in the Deep South after Microsoft and Sweet Baby Inc. involvement. The team that created their past celebrated title We Happy Few is mostly gone, leaving after being disillusioned about changes after the Xbox, Microsoft, and SBI involvement, studio politics, and more. Less than 10% of the original We Happy Few team remains. Promotion of non-qualified staff to lead and management positions resulted in a mess of a project. No idea how to make a game, in quotes. The dev team is almost entirely white and based in Montreal, Canada, and many devs felt uncomfortable creating a game in the Deep South with so little experience in that area. SBI and a person of color writer were brought on board to help with a more authentic perspective, and he follows that up with saying, the gamer-hating community manager, Pika Chulita, is cited as one of the many incompetent staff promoted or hired into senior positions who does no actual work. A quick glance at the company page she manages, Compulsion Games, reveals virtually no info about the game and consists of endless retweets of DEI-related matters and promotions about other games and companies. Devs paint a picture of a passion project by the creative director who grew up in the South, gone awry after Microsoft money. Projects in a poor state of development, good devs with good intentions being hamstrung by poor hires and promotions not based on merit, and very poor community management. And in quotes, there are many good people there, end quote. My personal hope is that Compulsion Games turns this around, creates the beautiful fantasy story they intended. They should clean up staff and get a new community manager who actually loves their games and loves gamers. And they should fire Sweet Baby Inc. and let gamers know they did. There are many devs in the industry who are held hostage, silenced by a DEI culture of fear that prevents them from doing their job, or from DEI and ESG culture lowering quality and abandoning merit, causing many talented devs stuck without promotions or forced to leave, and causing projects to fail. This has to change to fix gaming, and that is a monolith wall of text from Grums, but holy crap, does it completely expose everything wrong with Compulsion Games, Sweet Baby Inc., and the DEI agenda coming from the top at Microsoft. Now, something I want to make sure I get out of the way and very clear is this person, Piku Chulita, who I'm going to be talking about in this video, I don't necessarily blame her for being in this position that she's in. Sure, she's an awful human being, in my humble opinion, somebody that definitely shouldn't have the position that they have, but it's not her fault. This is something that's coming from Microsoft proper, where they're saying, yes, we want to make sure we highlight and raise up these marginalized voices so that they can tell other people what's okay and what's not. And in reality, all you're doing is bringing in very horrible, racist individuals that are not qualified for the positions they're in, and just because their skin color, you're just like, yeah, it's fine. Katie Robinson is probably the most egregious example that we're gonna have coming out of Compulsion Games. This is the poor hiring decision that is the most front-facing, the community manager, the one that everybody sees, because this is the person that supposedly represents your company to the public, to the gamers, to the people potentially opening their wallets to buy your product that you work so hard on. So you want to make sure you bring someone in that, I don't know, gets along with them. Katie has a history of, instead of focusing on her talents and creativity, using her race and sexual preferences to define her as a human being and her characteristics that she has to offer. It's what people who have literally nothing to offer the industry have found success doing in recent years, and they gravitate towards that and hang on to it and don't let go. But now gamers have woken up to what's happening, and that type of approach doesn't work anymore. Openly stating via an interview on the Refinery 29 in 2022 that she hates white men. Specifically, white male gamers were a mistake. And as I stated on X, I said, Pika Chulita, aka Katie Robinson, community manager of South of Midnight, is an extremely racist, anti-white individual that Compulsion Games and Microsoft Xbox Player 3 felt would be a great representation to assist them in selling their upcoming game. And her quote from this interview in 2022 is very blunt and straightforward, thinking that she's a badass by saying it, but in reality exposes her to the entire community of who we're really dealing with. And it states, her tweets and retweets are both blunt and fearless, and they might not be for everyone. Robinson is okay with that, which I gotta stop right there and say, this is a community manager. This is someone that's supposed to be the liaison between the community and the developer. And if you're going to be writing tweets that aren't for everyone, I don't know, maybe this isn't the right job for you. Robinson's okay with that. You're not going to tickle some people's fancy being outspoken or tweeting things like I do when I say white male gamers were a mistake, she says. It's like, what type of person says this? Someone who is an awful human being, mentally unhinged, very broken inside, that has a very bad view of reality, in my humble opinion, is the only type of person that would say this. And furthermore, I wouldn't hire them to work at any company that I'm at because that person would most likely not represent it in the best way. And no, it's not racist to say that. This is reality. Like, you can't be hiring people like this and thinking that everything's going to be hunky-dory. You can't hide behind the color of your skin. And she is now in protected mode on Twitter and has been for the better part of over a year. And this is, again, the community manager for Compulsion Games. She said some horrific things that were clipped before she went protected. I could only imagine the other things that she has on her Twitter account that people didn't clip before she went protected. Her crystal clear disdain for gamers, coupled with extremely racist remarks like white male gamers were a mistake, has alienated the very audience that Compulsion Games should be trying to reach in the first place. She tweeted, "The sheer level of scum-sucking filth that permeates the gaming community is abhorrent. I'm disgusted to even share an interest with so many terrible people." And first off, you hear that and you're like, I think you're in the wrong industry. If you just think everyone in your industry sucks, maybe you should not be there. I don't know, crazy thought, but if you hate it so much, what are you doing there? She quote tweets herself and says, "We also need to be very honest about the elephant in the room. The majority of the perpetrators are white/white adjacent cishet men." Okay? Again, the community manager is blanket statement very racist here. I don't know how else to say this, and it happens multiple times. And of course, she has flags, pronouns, and everything in her bio, and she goes on to say, "I gotta ask, what the F is wrong with y'all?" It's like, the problem isn't everyone else, okay? I don't know how to tell you this, Katie, but it's you. You need to get a mirror, self-reflect, and realize that you are the problem, not everybody else. And I think that's where the extreme disconnect comes in with these types of people. And right before taking her account private, she said, "Honestly, I hate gamers, TM." And this is another one of those people, I don't know how many times I've gone through it with people who work in the game industry, straight up telling people that they hate you. And they work in the game industry trying to sell games to you. It's almost as if they don't care if they sell games because they're so confident they'll get a paycheck every week that it's not about the games. It's about pushing ideology. Because at the end of the day, these people are all the same. They're activists. They're not gamers. That's why they hate gamers, because gamers don't give a crap about the ideologies and agendas that are being shoved down their throats. Despite the grim outlook due to some of these employees at Compulsion Games Studios, some developers within Compulsion Games are still trying to be hopeful for the project. These people, described as passionate and well-intentioned by Grums, have reportedly worked tirelessly to salvage whatever they can and what remains of South of Midnight. Unfortunately, their efforts are currently being undermined by a culture of fear that is prioritizing DEI initiatives over quality and merit, alongside people being hired that are actively making the customer base not want to support them. And again, watching the trailer for the game, I'm like, it looks very generic. It does. It's not being racist because there's a black person that was reportedly race swapped. It's because the game just doesn't look fun. I don't know how else to say it. And again, when people try to look at this and say, oh, it's because you're racist, that's why you don't like it, you can't use that as a shield anymore. The game looks like crap. I gotta be honest, the stop motion, it isn't for me. It's not the kind of game that I like to play. I look at this and I'm like, it looks like a Crash Bandicoot clone that doesn't really have much new to offer to it. It's almost like these people were like, let's put a game together for the sake of putting a game together, and hopefully people buy it, instead of going into the development process with, crazy thought, but stay with me, having an idea, a creative direction, something new to bring to the game industry that makes people want to be attracted and play it. A hook, something about the game that they can't put down. This game, as far as what I've seen so far, looks to have none of that. Does it play? Is it functioning? Does it not have a ton of glitches? That remains to be seen. But as of right now, It looks boring, it doesn't look like a great game, and of course they have to rely on skin color and blame anybody for criticizing any part of the game as just a racist because white men bad. Compulsion Games' struggles are symptomatic of a broader problem in the gaming industry. DEI and environmental social governments, the ESG initiatives, always come at the expense of merit and quality. The culture being created has left so many talented developers feeling like they're silenced and undervalued, while less qualified people are being raised up to be heard, resulting in projects that fail to meet any of their initial potential. If the industry doesn't course correct soon, more studios will follow directly in Compulsion Games' footsteps. South of Midnight could have been a groundbreaking title, blending fantasy with the rich culture of the Deep South, but instead, no. It's shaping up to be a complete disaster, unraveling by mismanagement, poor hiring decisions, and misguided priorities. Compulsion Games has to change and act swiftly to try and regain the trust of their audience and potentially salvage any of the reputation that they still have. But I'm not going to be holding my breath because based off of everything that I've witnessed so far, South of Midnight will go down as yet another reminder of what hiring the wrong people does to a company and how prioritizing politics and incompetence always overshadows creativity and passion. Anyways, I'm going to leave it there. If you guys want more information, check out smashjt.com for the full article. If you appreciate what I'm doing, hit that join button. Thank you so much for watching, and as always, you stay smashing.
I'm Pikachu Lita, I'm Solid Black, and this is my story. I'm a digital variety content creator that creates live streaming gaming content. I combine my gaming content with discussions around social advocacy. My existence as a Black queer woman, I think has been the focal point of my gaming experience. I love seeing people that look like me. It makes me feel good to support projects that are made by people of color and queer folks and women. Smash,